What's up, everybody? Here we're going to look at some of the general mechanics for Mega Man 4 for any percent speedrun category. Um, Basically, what the goal here is to make a tutorial so that somebody who's new to the run or somebody who's not quite sure how something works in this, try to help them understand this game a little more and what is actually going on, not just in stages, like not just learning strats in a stage, but also specifically learning what is going on based on how you're pressing the buttons and that kind of stuff. So something that I would like to talk about first is sliding. Sliding is obviously a very important part of the speedrun because it allows you to go quite a bit faster than just walking. I'm not going to get into incredible detail with regards to speed of movement, like while you're walking like this, as opposed to doing a slide like this. Obviously, you know, if you've played this game, definitely faster to be sliding like this than to walk across all like this. So slides are going to become one of the most important things for this, obviously. There's a few different things I want to talk about with regards to slides. The first thing is a neutral slide. I'm going to be referencing neutral slides every so often throughout my tutorials. Basically, what I mean by that is I want to do a slide where a neutral slide basically means that I'm not going to be pressing left or right. So you can see my inputs at the bottom left corner here. Just down here, obviously, using FCEUX emulator. And a neutral slide is just me pressing down and A. I'm just going to frame advance this. You can see that I just do a normal slide and I don't do any like walking animation or anything with it. It's just a neutral slide. I move for the desired distance of the slide and then it ends. So you're going to see me talk about neutral slides, I think mostly in places like Pharaoh and a couple other places like that, but I will talk about that. The other kind of slide obviously is a moving slide. So if you're holding a direction, like going right, because you're sliding to the right through the whole screen, you want to be holding right while you're doing it, because that way if you come out of your slide for a fraction of a second, at least you're still moving in the direction you want to go. So this is just called, I would just call it a moving slide, or just a normal slide in my opinion. Typically that's like pretty common of what's going on. You don't actually slide further when you do this. However, if you're not frame perfect with your slides, you'll move like a pixel or two further the direction you're holding, obviously, because you walked for a frame or two. So you just have to be aware of that. There is a difference between a neutral slide and a slide where you're moving. In the places that I'll talk about in Pharaoh, actually, the difference between the two slides will actually kill you if you do like a moving slide as opposed to a neutral slide. So the next big thing that I want to talk about is jump slides. So obviously in this game, unlike, let me get to a different spot here, a little further in the stage here. So in Mega Man 6, you cannot jump out of your slide, which means mid-slide you can't hit A and jump like this. So the nice thing about Mega Man 4 is you can jump out of your slide, which is really, really nice. The biggest thing that this is going to cause for problems is you want to be usually sliding as far as possible and like jumping to ledges like short as possible so you can get the maximum slide distance to make your jumps. I guess one thing that you would want to do for practice sake is, I'm going to advance this slide here. So something you really want to practice is getting used to sliding up to an edge and then jumping to make your jumps, so just cutting it as close as you can to land. Now, like, that jump was a little exaggerated, so I'm like way over and I'm landing easily. This is something that's going to take a lot of practice. You're going to maybe find that if you're a new runner and just starting out, you might want to cut some of your ledge jumps out of your run, I should say, just in case you find that some of the strats might be a little bit too difficult and you're worried about sliding off an edge into a pit. The nice thing about spots like this is you don't have to worry about dying. So if you were a new runner and just basically look over the run and look for edges like this corner here where if you miss the jump you wouldn't die or the run wouldn't end. And those are the kind of edges you want to look for to practice. But typically what you're looking for is a visual cue is what I use. A lot of other people might do these a little bit more by feel, but typically I do this sort of just by a visual cue. And I'm watching Mega Man's hand. This is the sort of spot that I'm looking for so that I can tell when to jump. Typically when his hand hits about here, about maybe a pixel or so from the edge, that's where I'm looking to try to jump from. So if I jump from there, I can still jump from there. That works. And I can land to that edge easily. If, however, I slide off and I slide just a little bit too far, like right about there, okay, so I can still jump there. And then if I go even a little bit further, probably this is gonna push me over the edge. So that's one more. Ooh, I was even able to jump off there. That works really nice. So then how about one more further than that? Right there. Okay, so there I couldn't jump. So basically what you want to do is you want to get a feel for where the game is going to say, no, you're not going to be able to make that jump, or yes, you're okay. So the reason that, what I was just talking about, where I like to jump, let me get back up here, where I like to jump from about here, the reason I like to jump from about here is that way if I push the button a little bit late, I can still jump. So that's the beauty of it, is if you are worried about missing some slide jumps, just practice, give yourself a little bit more space, and just try to practice aiming for something like this. And if you try to delay it a little too long, just be prepared that you're probably going to miss your jump like that. It doesn't need to be perfect typically most of the time, but if you can get your jumps so that your hand is just about at the edge, like about there, you should make your jumps all the time. There's nothing overly hard about this. It just takes some practice, get some, just like I said, just trying to do it as much as you can in areas where it won't kill you. And then once that starts to feel comfortable, you can start doing it in more places. And eventually, you won't even think about the fact that you're doing it right in front of a pit, which could potentially kill you. You'll just do it sort of instinctively. That's sort of a big deal with moving and jumping out of slides. The other things, techniques that you'll want to know with regards to slides, one of the bigger ones is doing a shot into a slide. So shoot sliding, I'm not sure what we'd really call it. Bullet slides, maybe, I guess you could call them in a way. But basically all that is, I'm just going to get back to a place where there's no enemies here for a second. But basically all that is this kind of movement. I'm pressing B, and I'm like immediately sliding. You see me going B to A, B to A, B to A, B to A. You can see my inputs like a roll B to A, B to A, B to A, B to A. And I get that feel for like there should be one bullet coming out every time I slide. That's the idea. So if I can roll my bullets accordingly, I should always get one bullet there. This is another technique you're going to really want to practice because there's a lot of parts in the run that require that kind of movement, that kind of input. So if you can get comfortable doing that B to A roll, that's going to make everything so much easier. Also, I didn't really talk about this, but I've got a hitbox viewer showing right now. So you can see Mega Man's hitbox. It's the little pink box around his sprite. Notice how big it is when I'm sliding. So this is a really, really important thing to notice for why sliding is another reason why it's advantageous. Your hitbox becomes so small. Like this is so tiny. And so it actually is a lot harder for enemies to hit you when you're in your sliding animation. So typically a slide is actually a really good idea because this is what allows you to get underneath enemy shots. And then, for example, in Pharaoh, there's one where you turn left and back damage boost off the Pharaoh's head. This is why it works, because your hitbox is just so tiny when you're sliding. Okay, so another thing about slides is, I guess we can talk about, I should talk about water slides. So let me pause here and let's pull up Dive Man State. Okay, so let's talk about sliding underwater. So a lot of people might already know this, but sliding underwater is quite a bit different than sliding outside of water. So obviously, like I just said in Skull, you can jump out of your slides here. But a big thing that a lot of people don't realize, that you can't actually do that underwater. You can see if you look at the input display at the bottom left corner, you can see me mashing A, but I don't actually jump until my slide ends. So this is to show that you can't actually jump out of your slide underwater. Now, basically the way that you have to adjust so you can do this is you need to do what's called a slide cancel. Basically all this is if you're sliding left like this, you just want to tap right, preferably for 1 frame. That will stop your slide, and then you can jump in the direction that you were previously going, if that makes sense. So if I want to do a slide and then cancel, I have to like turn the opposite direction. So going this way, but I can't jump out of my slide, so I need to hit left for 1 frame, preferably again, and then jump. Then it allows me to be able to jump. So it's not really jumping out of a slide. You actually have to stop your slide, and then it'll allow you to do a normal jump, because then you're basically just jumping underwater like this, because you've stopped your slide. So really, as long as you're really careful underwater with that kind of stuff, it's not a big deal. For newer runners, I recommend, for certain sections, you might want to just not worry about slide cancels yet. Slide cancels is a little more advanced strat. So for stages like this, when we get to the Dive Man tutorial, I'm going to talk a lot probably about which slides are not really worth it for a newer runner, whereas slide cancels might become more worth it for a more advanced run. The other thing that I kind of want to mention is, because of certain lengths of platforms, like for example the one I'm standing on right now, and from the length of the slide, there was a Mega Man 6 runner named Raiden the Quick, and he discovered a technique and now is just sort of been dubbed Raiden slides because of it. And what it basically means is, if there's a platform like the one I'm standing on that is 4 tiles wide, then 1 full slide, as you see right here, will put you right at the edge of it. So if I land on this edge, and let's say there's spikes all along here, I don't have to worry about slide canceling, because I know my slide will end right here and I'll be able to jump. This obviously is more important in a game like Mega Man 6 where you can't jump out of your slide at all, but in 4, it's very useful for anywhere like this where it's underwater. So there's a couple sections in this stage. I'll talk about it when I get to it, when I get into the Dive Man tutorial, but just be aware that whenever I talk about a Raiden slide, this is what I'm talking about. It's this perfect slide distance that allows you to land on the edge, hit slide, and then jump out with no worry of having to stop your slide by canceling. So that's just some little bits of information there. Hopefully that'll help with regards to slide movement. Okay, so now I'm going to move on and talk about balloon. Okay, now that we're back in Skullman stage, I want to specifically talk about balloon here, because this is one of the cooler stages that has some strats. So let's switch to balloon here and take a look. I'm just gonna make a save here in case I load back with full balloon. So something obviously that most people will know about balloons is they make you go up. Now notice when I land on it, look at the hitbox of this balloon. See how like that box just gets massive? So one of the big things about this game is when you start getting more than 1 balloon on screen, the game starts to get really laggy. You can actually see my frame lag counter there. It's that 1203, the green number in the bottom left corner. Watch it go up as I put more balloons. You can see any movement that I cause with 3 balloons on screen just generates a ton of extra lag. So something to be really aware of when you're going to use balloons in this game is, if you're going to use them, try to use them in places that you're not going to use a whole bunch on one screen, or in a place where, let's say, you can put it in a wall and make it despawn quickly without having to have it on screen for a really long time. Because, yeah, the hitbox of those things, it just gets out of hand. You see how big that is. Like, it's no wonder why they lag so much. Alright, so something else. The second thing I'd really like to mention about balloons is the danger of them killing you. So balloons, obviously, they go up. You notice that they go up like this. If you have a balloon that is high enough to the ceiling, close enough to the ceiling where it sort of pinches your head there, what can basically happen here, let me get up here, is the balloon can actually crush you. So basically what's happening here is I'm putting a balloon at a point about here where there's not enough space for me to technically stand there. And if I slide off of it and exit, or slide off the balloon, the game will actually eject me in a way that puts my head in the ceiling. And in Mega Man 4, unless you have invincibility frames, or what we call iframes for short, it'll actually instantly kill you. You're not allowed to live in a wall without iframes. So this is something that's really dangerous that you have to be aware of when you're using balloons. The only time that this is really utilized by putting your head in the ceiling is to do some minor zips, and one of which is right here at the beginning of this stage. I can show you right now for just a quick example, but I'm going to talk about this zip a lot more when I get into the Skullman tutorial, so don't focus too much on this, but this is just what I'm talking about, basically. I don't know if I can do this on emulator, we'll see. But the idea is you do that. Basically, you get stuck in a point where you can't get off the balloon, and then an enemy will hit you, and the game will just push you through a wall. And because you got hit by an enemy, you'll have iframes, and you'll live through that zip. But typically, other than that, the balloons will always push you into the ceiling, and it'll basically zip you into the ceiling, and it'll kill you. That's something you have to be really aware of. Okay, so the main reason that balloons are really good, though, now getting that negative stuff out of the way, is obviously you can scale vertically very quickly. So you can do very quick balloon jumps, and that allows you to go up certain screens very fast. You would think, okay, well, yeah, this is cool. Yeah, you got the balloons or whatever. The weird thing about balloon, though, is you're actually still able to jump off of it while... Even if you put it in a wall like this, you can see the balloons disappearing. I can't put a balloon here. However, when I do that, as you can see, there's a green hitbox there. And that's to show you basically that even though the balloon is basically put in a wall and disappearing, I can actually still jump off of it. The thing is, though, I have to move towards the balloon. So I'm going to show you this, something that a lot of people mess up with when they're first trying to learn how to do a wall jump with a balloon. So typically what will happen is someone will jump towards a wall, and they'll get right here, and they'll place a balloon, and then they'll go, oh, I wasn't able to jump off of it. Typically, the biggest mistake that newer runners make when they're trying to learn balloon jumps is they are already basically at a point where they're too far over to the right, and they're up against the wall. The thing about a balloon is you can shoot a balloon, but if I just shoot a balloon straight here, you notice I'm not landing on it, right? Obviously. But if I move a little bit towards it, I can. So if I fire a balloon and I'm already up against the wall, there's no way I can land on that balloon. So I actually have to fire the balloon before I hit the wall. And the idea here is, I need to move, looks like it's see how many pixels it actually is. So I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4. Jump. Obviously that works. Go out there. Can't jump on it there. So it shows you I need to move 4 pixels towards a balloon before I can actually land on it. So if I put my balloon anywhere within 4 pixels of this wall, I won't be able to land on it. I'll put it too far into the wall. So to do a proper balloon jump, you need to place the balloon roughly somewhere about here, I guess you could say. It doesn't really matter how close to the wall is, as long as you can move towards it. And then you just need to be holding A enough so that you jump high enough that the balloon will pull you up like this. Once you're on the balloon here, now I can repress A and jump off of it. Even though the balloon never spawned, it allowed me to do a full jump off of that balloon with it despawning in the wall. And that's how a balloon jump properly works. Now, if you're doing this, let's try to see how many frames we have here. So we land on the balloon, that was a pretty quick balloon jump, so we will have a lot of frames here. So let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10 frames there before Mega Man starts to fall. And now obviously I can't jump off it because the balloon is gone. So it shows you that this balloon despawning has a massive window. You have a big window time frame of when you can actually jump off of these balloons to wall jump. So if you're having problems with this, it's likely because you're firing the balloon too far, like when you're over too far close to the wall. Because remember, you need to move at least 4 pixels toward the balloon to actually jump off of it. So if you're not still holding right a little bit, you won't land on the balloon. So make sure that you're at least moving up at least that close, and that will allow you to land on the balloon. Other than that, there's not a whole lot else to balloon jumps other than practicing to put them close together. There's obviously the balloon jumps in Cossack 2. There's a quick one in Ring that you can do that's a double balloon. The ones that are basically the double balloon jumps like this, where you're kind of doing that kind of motion. And those ones are the hardest ones of all. But if you can at least, when you're first starting, practice learning to do just one balloon jump, like this whole motion here, it's a big window, like I said. You just have to put the balloon in a place where you can still jump off of it like that. And if you can get comfortable with this input, then you'll save yourself a ton of time. Even if you can't get the 2 balloons, that will take some practice and you'll get eventually better at it, but definitely being able to do 1 balloon like that will save you a ton of time in this game. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is Flash Stopper. The Flash Stopper is probably the most broken weapon in this game. So something I'm going to want to show you here is the amount of time a Flash Stopper lasts. So I'm going to pause the game here. We're going to notice that the frame count is at 500. All right, so I'm gonna make my save state at 3,500 frames. So on frame 3,501, I'm gonna hit flash. So I'm gonna advance it. I'm gonna flash the screen right there. And basically, what I want to show you is the frame that everything becomes active again. Okay. Actually, so let me redo this. Where there's an enemy closer on the screen, one that'll shoot. He shoots as soon as he gets on screen, so let's pause it right about here. I'll get it paused at, well, perfect, 3,700 right there. We're gonna save it right there. So at 37 and 1, I'm gonna fire Flash Stopper. So now we just wait and see how long it takes. It should be 300 frames. So 300 frames is 5 full seconds. So let's watch this again. Oops. Fire Flash Stopper. So at 4,000 exactly, this guy should unfreeze, and he should fire something at me. So let's see, 99, there's 4,000. He should be active now. Where's the shot? Oh, he's starting to shoot there. So it takes him a few frames to actually shoot at me. But that's the length of a Flash Stopper, is that 300 frames. Now, something that's really interesting, and this is a big part of the speedrun, is for some reason they forgot to, with the programming of Flash Stopper, they messed around with the timing when it comes to slides. In fact, when you slide with Flash Stopper active, you pause the countdown on Flash Stopper. So basically what's happening is if you can keep your movement really clean with really close slides and keep, like, let's say even 1 or 2 frames in between each slide, you'll make Flash Stopper almost last infinitely if you have perfect movement. So for example, typically, like we said, it's going to last 300 frames, correct? So if I fire, let's load my save here. If I fire Flash Stopper on 307, and now it's going, if I do some frames, so at 4,000, that shooter, or that turret, should become active. So right now, if Flash Stopper was properly counting down, this turret would shoot at me right now. But you notice, he's still frozen. Flash Stopper is still active. So that's what I'm talking about, is with good slide chains, you're actually extending Flash Stopper's time of how long it lasts and how long you can keep enemies frozen on a screen with one flash. Obviously, the better your movement, like I said, the longer it'll last. So this becomes really important in stages like if you're going to use Bright in Dust. Anywhere where you really use Bright, it's important, but it's important for places like Dust. Toad especially, it's important. Skull, it's very important in the second half of the stage, or the first half if you decide to use some of the beginner strats that I'm going to show. A lot of the castle stages don't use Bright for the main strats, but some of the beginner strats might be easier for some newer runners to use Bright in there. So obviously, chaining slides and making your movement very smooth is going to be a very critical point to this speedrun when it comes to manipulating Flash Stopper. The better you get at slide chaining, the longer your Flash Stopper will last, making rooms easier, essentially. That's really all there is to it. There's nothing too fancy. One last thing I would like to talk about, though, is something with this hitbox sphere you can see is they've actually got the HP of the enemy shown on screen. So you notice that these turrets have 4 hit points. If I flash this guy and shoot him 3 times, so he's almost out of HP, he's got 1 hit point left, but Flash Stopper wears off. If I do not kill him before Flash Stopper ends, if I re-flash, oh, these enemies, it doesn't apply to them. Interesting. There's some enemies that it doesn't count down, and I'll actually show you that here. There's a Skull Joe, where if you do not put enough hits in on him, he won't actually take a hit. He won't get any damage taken to him. So here's a Skull Joe here. They have 3 HP. So I'm going to hit him once, twice. You see he's got 1 hit point left. Flash Stopper wears off. Look, he's got 3 hit points again. So technically, this Skull Joe could live forever if I had... if I don't actually deal the final hit with Flash Stopper still active, he'll get his HP back. So that's something to be aware of, is on some enemies in this game, that happens. They get their hit points back if you don't kill them before the flash wears off. But then there's other ones like those turrets down here, where it does save their HP damage, and you can kill them on the next flash. So just be aware if you ever notice something weird like that happen, that's why it's happening. Okay, so another thing I want to talk about is Pharaoh Shot. This is going to be a really quick one, because it's pretty straightforward. There's nothing overly hard to understand about this. But there's the thing about Pharaoh Shot really is you can charge it, which everybody knows. But if you hit something with the charge and you kill it, and it eats up the charge. That's what I want to show here if I can. Let's get to... Where's a good place to show this off? I guess the Skull Joes. Let me get to that Skull Joe again in that other room. I can. Okay, so I'm gonna have a charge shot here. So something I want you to watch the input display at the bottom. So I'm holding B right now. If I hold B and I kill that Skull Joe, I'm still holding B. The charge above my head is gone. The Pharaoh Shot charge is gone. However, I'm still holding B. If I release B, a full charge shot still gets used. So something to be aware of. This is the glitch that happens that we use in the Bright Man fight, the Ring Man fight. It's basically what we do to make those fights go really fast. You get 2 charge shots for the price of 1. The amount of time it takes for you to charge the shot above your head still gives you the opportunity to deal damage with this shot above your head. Plus, if you still hold B, you can release it. Now, if you just release it now, you obviously lose out on the double hit. So you have to be careful of that. But it is a really useful technique for killing, especially Ring Man, really fast, and for the Bright Man fight if you're doing Pharaoh first. The other thing to pay attention to is notice that when I press B and I start to charge, the hitbox for Pharaoh Shot is already that big. It's like the size of a fully charged shot, even when it's like just tiny and just starting to charge. It's a big hitbox. So when you are going to be using this to kill like Ring Man and Bright Man, you kind of have to protect that orb above your head, that big square, until it's fully charged. So that's going to be something that you need to be aware of too, is practicing, getting used to, like, sure, you want to kill Ring Man and Bright really quick with it, but you're going to need to practice avoiding hitting them with this big green square above your head until it's fully charged like it is now. So that's something else to be aware of as well. Other than that, Pharaoh Shot is pretty straightforward. Again, you can shoot it similar to Metal Blade. You can throw it up, you can throw it down, and you can throw it straight across. And then you can charge it, obviously. So that's sort of the different things you can do with that. Okay, so at this point, I think I would like to just sort of talk about other weapons. So I'm going to fire up another sort of save where I have all the weapons. So we already talked about Bright. Some of the other weapons here. Toad is a pretty good weapon because it hits all enemies on screen. However, it's actually not very strong. And the other downside is you notice that it takes a while for that to go up in the air. If you are to fire a bullet off like this, and that bullet goes off screen, this is actually a bad place to show this off. I'm gonna actually change. There's a good room to show this. I guess this one here. So the thing about Toad's weapon is we need a really long place so we can slide here. You notice though, it's not very strong. It deals 2 damage to these mummies, and it uses a ton of weapon energy. But something to be aware of. I'm just gonna kill this mummy really quick. Okay, so if you fire Toad and you're sliding really quick, and you slide it off screen, it won't even go off. So you just waste the Toad. So essentially, to use Toad, it also requires you to slow down just to have it hit the screen. This is one of the downsides of this weapon, and this is why we only use it in the refights with Brightman. Drill is a kind of a cool weapon. It's pretty strong for the most part. You just have to be aware that it lags the game. You want to press B to fire it. It'll explode on contact with or walls and stuff like that. But you can also pre-detonate it with B. So if you hit B early, it'll pre-detonate. This is something that'll be useful for the Wily machine fight. It's something that's actually necessary. It'll also, like I said, it'll generate some lag sometimes if there's enough stuff on screen. You'll see there, actually, if I'm moving, look at the lag counter. Like, it's just flying up because I'm mashing these drills. So that's something to be aware of with the drill shot. We already talked about Pharaoh. Ring, it's pretty straightforward. It goes straight out. Comes back to you wherever you're standing. So sometimes you can get some weird arcs with it, like that. It goes over my head here, like that. If it doesn't quite come back to me. And it'll sort of zigzag its way there. One thing I do want to mention with this weapon, though, is look at the size of Ring's hitbox. So all the other weapons, like Pharaoh had a hitbox like massive above your head. Ring's hitbox is this little green dot. A lot of people have issues with bosses like Mothra because the Ring is hard to hit his hitbox with, but this is why. It's because the Ring's hitbox is so tiny. You would think it would be this whole ring square, but it's really not. It's just this little tiny green dot. So when you do shoot with Ring, you need to be very precise with your shots. Dust is a kind of unique weapon because it can hit enemies twice. It hits on contact, and then when it explodes, those particles can deal damage as well. So, you notice that guy had 6 HP, but the explosion was able to kill him all in one hit. So I hit him once, and then like hit him, the extra shots killed the mummy from the explosion. This is kind of neat. Dust is kind of a cool weapon in that regard. You can get multiple hits in if the enemy doesn't have like iframes or something. Skull Shield is pretty straightforward. It's just like a lot of other ones where it creates a barrier around you, basically making you not invincible, but protected definitely by like things like projectiles and stuff for sure. Like if this thing comes at me, it just destroys the head and takes up the Skull Crusher. As useful as this is in some sections, especially for a newer runner, unfortunately there's not a lot of skull barrier in your weapon ammo. You only get 14 uses of this weapon. So just be aware that, especially in castle stages, it's a bad idea to burn through it. But there'll definitely be some easier strats in 8 Robots where I'll show you some neat strats with skull barrier. And then the only other weapon I want to talk about for the Robot Master weapons, obviously, is Dive Missile. This weapon, you're going to learn, has somewhat of a mind of its own, and it's just going to take some use to getting adjusted to it. I'm going to specifically talk a lot about how to manipulate this weapon when you're fighting Drillman, because that's the only time you're going to use this weapon, is when you actually go to fight Drillman. And it can be very tedious sometimes to hit Drillman. Like, you notice that missile went all the way around that mummy before it even hit him. And so I'll talk a lot about how to try to manipulate this missile to make it do what you actually want it to do and not do what it's doing right now. Okay, so the other weapons are obviously the rush adapters that you're going to use that help you out. So there's 3 different kinds. There's coil, there's marine, there's jet. We're going to use jet. There's a possibility that some of you might use coil a little bit. There's nothing too different from these apart from Mega Man 3 or some of the other ones. Coil obviously comes down. His hitbox is around his head in this game. And you just want to like jump onto him, and that gives you good height. But something else to be aware of is you actually don't even need to jump. You can just walk onto Rush, and you will actually get shot up into the air in this game. That's something that's kind of neat and not many people know about maybe, is you don't even need to jump on Rush in this game. You can just walk onto him, and he'll throw you in the air. However, if you do jump on him, you will get a little more height. You notice here, I peak out at about there for height, so my foot is even with this black line here. Whereas, if I just walk onto him, my peak jump is about 1 tile less. So my bottom of my foot is down here as opposed to up here. So if it's a height-related jump and you do need that extra height, you will need to jump on coil. That's something that you need to be aware of. With regard to jet, I know in some games like Mega Man 5, you need to almost jump right away to land on jet. However, in this game, jet comes down from the sky a little slower, so you do need to wait a little bit before jumping up on Rush. Again, noticing how big Rush's hitbox is, this is why jet can lag the game quite a bit. So you need to be sort of alert and aware of that. Also, the difference between Mega Man 3 and Mega Man 4 is you don't have full control of Rush Jet anymore. The only thing you can do is sort of hold left or hold the opposite direction that you're moving, and that will slow you down a little bit. You can also go up and down. Other than that, you can just shoot. I don't think, yeah, you can't turn. You'd have to jump on Rush to actually turn the other direction to start shooting the other way, and typically that's just not something you ever want to do. You can actually do little hops and gain some horizontal movement on Rush, like to the right. If I land too far to the back of him, yeah, if I can land right on the tail, I do these little hops. There you can see I'm already over the head of Rush. Like little jumps will sometimes move you a little bit to the right or left, depending on which way you're moving. And then the only other weapon is Marine. Obviously, you would only be able to use this in water, so Rush won't even spawn here because we're not in water. But a really weird glitch with this weapon is look where my buster shots come out of. They come out of like my feet. So if you are ever going to use Marine and you go to shoot something with Rush Marine out when you're not actually in Marine, be very aware of this, because this is something that could really screw you over if you were trying to aim at like a Stingray in Dive Man stage coming at you, and you thought a bullet was going to come out of your hand and it came out of your feet and you missed the Stingray. Marine won't really get used in the speedrun, but I know casually it makes a lot of people feel a lot safer sometimes, especially in Dive Man stage. One other thing I actually do want to mention about Coil and Rush in general actually is if you take damage while Rush is on screen, Rush will actually warp to your position. This is something that's really weird. So if I have him over here and I get hit, notice that Rush actually warped to me. And if you have Coil on, like we talked about how Coil throws you in the air without actually jumping on him, he's actually going to do the same thing. He'll throw you in the air if you get warped to him. So that's something to be actually really careful of, is if Rush is on screen, just be aware that if you get hit when he's on screen, this is going to happen. And this applies with Jet as well. I'm going to show here with Jet, if you get hit, he sort of like warps back to your position. A good example of this is right here. If Jet sort of gets away from you, get hit here, but Jet gets away from you a little bit, you notice that he warps right back to my position there. That's something that's sort of a weird quirk also with Rush, and you really need to be careful of when you're using him. So there's some weird little quirks with some of the Rush adapters in this game. So we talked about Flash Stopper, Pharaoh Shot, and weapons, and the Rush adapters. Now I want to talk a little bit about just Buster in general. So obviously you can shoot lemons, or you can hold B and charge. This is the first Mega Man game where you have the charge Buster. The charge shot is a little bit smaller compared to Mega Man 5 and 6. It's like, basically it's narrower. You can see, look at the actual hitbox of a charge shot. It's actually pretty small here. It's not even as big as the sprite, and the sprite already is pretty narrow. So really the biggest thing that you want to be aware of with regards to the charge shot is the fact that you can actually generate lag by charging. So notice that that lag counter in that green number there at the bottom left is going up. Just by holding a charge and walking, I'm lagging the game. So something you really need to be aware of is that. Now, if I was to just mash, I'll try to redo this here where these enemies respawn back. I still lag the game sometimes with mashing, but I get far less lag. Like, look, I'm only getting like maybe 3 or 4 lag frames, as opposed to if I come in here, I get like 6 or 7. Like, it's quite a bit more, and that's just holding the charge for a very short time. So a problem that I usually see newer runners make is they'll start getting into a section and they start holding a charge, and they're not thinking about what they're actually doing. They're actually generating quite a bit of lag. So I really want like runners and new runners especially to think about what they're doing. Obviously, if you're not a very good masher, or you're very new to mashing in general, where your mashing won't be as fast, sometimes it is better to maybe charge and make it easier for you. But I would recommend just practicing, in a lot of cases, just using lemons. They just generate less lag, and in the long run will help you go a little bit faster, as opposed to holding a charge in a room and then getting some extra lag frames that might just make your run slower. There are definitely times in a run where you want to charge and you will not generate lag frames, and I'll try to mention them as we go through the 8 robot tutorials, and just be like, you know what, you can charge here, don't feel like you can't and you have to mash. But just something to be aware of when you're doing your runs. Just watch for like extra lag all of a sudden, like where the game just slows down because you decided to hold a charge or something. Another thing that's somewhat unique about this game is to actually start a charge. If I'm holding B out of this menu, notice I didn't start charging. So in Mega Man 4, unlike Mega Man 5 and 6, you actually have to press B. It wants to register an actual B press, and that's what will allow you to charge. If you do not shoot a shot to start charging, you won't be able to charge. Pharaoh Shot you can charge out of a menu, but Buster you can't. That's something to be aware of, is if you ever need to charge, you need to fire at least 1 lemon so that the game registers that you want to basically start charging. And other than that, really the only difference is, the only reason Charge Buster is really useful in this game is mostly for boss fights. When the very first boss fight, you're doing Bright first or Pharaoh first, and you're doing your Buster fight. It's obviously faster with boss invincibility frames to get a charge shot in. And the reason for that is a boss's iframes in this game last for 47 frames. Now, if you do a single lemon shot frame perfect every time, you're going to go 47 and 47 and 47, right? So that'd be roughly, what's that? 2 of that would be 94 frames, plus another 47 is what? Math. Somebody math me. Well, let's say it's 45. That would be 90, and then 135, then tack on the extra 6. So it's 141 frames if you were to just do lemons on bosses and their iframes. So the reason, obviously, we don't do that, we don't mash bosses. This is why we don't use Bright on Pharaoh Man, actually, because it's so slow, because you're mashing lemons at him, and it's really, really tedious and slow. We want to do charge shots on those bosses, because a charge, you notice here, let's count how many frames it takes to actually charge here. Just save on a good number here, like 400 will do. I'm going to press B on 401. So there we go. And I'm going to start charging. There's my shot. And my charge is going. You can see it start there. It's going to start going. And I'm just going to go right now until we see it show Mega Man turn green. Because that's what most people look for as a visual cue to know you've got a full charge. So let's see the first time we see the green sprite. Right there, 99. So 99 frames to see the green sprite, which is a full charge for Mega Man. Unlike the 141 frames. So that's 42 frames faster already than doing Lemons, which is about 2/3 of a second, roughly speaking. Now, the interesting thing about this game is you actually get a full charge before this sprite is visible. So if you get good at practicing timing charge shots, you can actually start shooting a little bit sooner than 99 frames. So let me go back to this and do the same thing again. Let's start charging again. And let's see if we can figure out what the actual frame is that we can release. So let's try 90. I'm going to release at 91. That's not a full charge. Let's try again here. Let's try 92. I got a full charge there. So you see, at 92 frames, even though I didn't see the green sprite, I got a full charge. Let's try 91. Letting go, not a full charge. So you can see that it takes 92 frames to do a charge shot in Mega Man 4, as opposed to some of the other games it's actually a little longer or a little shorter, actually. But if you're waiting for the sprite, you're just waiting an extra 7 frames. So there's a 7-frame window between when your charge is actually ready and when the game, you see the green sprite on Mega Man where you can tell you definitely have a full charge. So that's something to be aware of as well, is if you're trying to get the best potential kill on a Robot Master with Buster, getting comfortable with that sort of rough time frame of how long it takes a Buster to charge a full charge shot to build, that's important, because if you can shave off and get a 92 frame charge every time, you're shaving off 7 frames every single time you shoot, in theory, if you do it perfectly. Not everybody's perfect, but let's say, for sake of argument here, you are. If you save 7 frames on each charge shot, and bosses have 28 health, charge shot does 3 damage, so that's 9 charge shots that you have to do to kill a boss. Now, typically you get a free one because you should be charging when you enter a boss fight. So you should always get the first charge free. That means there's 8 charges you have to do with Buster. So 8 times 7, right? Was that 56? And that gives 56 frames of potential time save just by releasing your charge a little earlier than seeing the green sprite. Which is, again, that's almost a full second of time you could save just by releasing your charge early and getting that charge. So you actually see how much time you can potentially save over the span of a whole boss fight and that kind of thing. Obviously, for a newer runner, that's not necessary, but definitely if you're getting into more advanced strats with regards to the charge, I highly recommend looking into getting better timing on your release as opposed to just waiting for Mega Man sprite to actually turn green. Okay, and the only other thing I really want to talk about here is magic pixels and kill locations. So let's get, I'm just going to fast forward here to get to a boss, and so I can sort of show off one magic pixel, and then I'm going to talk and sort of explain about it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a link to a Google Doc that'll have all the screenshots of the magic pixels. And that way somebody can just take a look at that and see where they are and whatnot. So let's go to a boss fight here. Okay, so we've got Skullman here. Obviously I chose this one because it's easy, because Skullman doesn't do anything until you do any inputs, do a left, right, or B input basically. So what I basically want to explain here is just a really quick example of time difference between killing a boss in the middle of the screen as opposed to like the side of a screen, and then I want to explain sort of like magic pixel stuff. I'm just gonna do this fight like I normally would here. We're gonna get him to the middle. Hopefully. Okay, so kill shot. I'm just gonna say kill shot is roughly around frame 13201. Okay, so 201 we'll say. It's not exact, but it was close enough. We'll say 200 for sake of argument. I'm just gonna get roughly to the middle. Now I want to basically just keep tapping until I hear the first sound. Okay, there it was right there actually. So 481. So 280 frames roughly if I kill him in the middle, okay? Now I want to compare basically and show you the difference when you kill somebody in the... dying. Get him over here. Okay. Let me freeze this here so we can actually... Okay. As soon as he dies, I'm gonna try to pause it here. Okay, so he died about 360, okay? Now, let's time it again. Roughly 360, and the song starts... right there. This is 748. So, that would be, let me think, do math. That would be 350 plus 40, 390 frames as opposed to 280. So even just that rough estimate, not even perfect, it's like 100 to 110 some frames difference, which is almost 2 full seconds if you actually consider the amount of time difference that is. That's killing him directly in like a corner as opposed to roughly around the center. So that's basically just showing you how much or how important it is to try to kill bosses closer to the middle of the room. And that's why when I go through a lot of these 8 robots, I'm going to basically be trying to show that you want to be trying to stay near the middle so that the bosses typically will stay near the middle, and that'll allow you to save some of these wasted frames here. All right, so let's make a save after Skull dies here, and then I'm going to talk about this magic pixel. Okay, I'm just going to save right here. Oh, and I can't really see here, so I'm going to turn the hitbox viewer off because we don't really need that anymore. Get rid of that. Okay. So Skull's dead. So basically, the idea behind a magic pixel, so right now I'm standing on the magic pixel that's facing right. If I was to move to the right, I would need to be standing there. That would be the same magic pixel, but the one for facing left. So basically, a room doesn't technically have a perfect center pixel. There are 2 pixels that are considered to be the center pixel in a sense, because it's an equal number of pixels. It's not an odd number of pixels. And so the middle on the left pixel, that's the one you need to be facing right for. And the middle one on the right is the one that you need to be facing left for. So if I'm facing left, I need to be standing here. If I'm facing right, I need to be standing right above like this bone, that line right there. So the middle of Mega Man lines perfectly with. So that's something to be aware of. There is 2 different pixels here, and they're not the same one. So I can't just face left on this same pixel. It will not give me the pixel. I'd be 1 too far to the left. Now, a problem that some people have is they'll make a boss kill, and they'll get up here, and it's like, I'll try to inch forward and show you. But see, I pressed over for 1 frame, and I inched over the magic pixel. I missed it. So there's something that can happen sometimes where you end up on the wrong subpixel, which means that no matter how much you wiggle it and tap left or right with Mega Man trying to walk and find the pixel, you just can't get it no matter what. And basically what happens, what you need to do when this happens is you need to adjust your subpixel. And the fastest way to adjust your subpixel when this happens is to just slide and just stop your slide somewhere. Like, I got the subpixel there. If I can't get it, I, like, find that I can't get it, I need to do a quick slide like that, and to, like, adjust my pixel so that I can get it. So I recommend doing, like, a really short slide and cancel it as soon as you can so that you can, like, adjust and try to get it. It's like, oh, I can't get it quickly. Obviously, you need to do it really quick so that you can get it. But that's how you would adjust your subpixel so that you can get the magic pixel. Because I know I see a lot of people, sometimes they're just like, oh, I can't get it. It won't let me, like, get the pixel. How come I can't inch forward and get it? That's what's going on, is it's a subpixel thing. And you just, as soon as you see that you can't get it, the sooner you can see it, the better, because that gives you time to react, to do your slide, cancel the slide as soon as possible, and get to the pixel. Other than that, it's just about learning where the pixels are. And like I said, I'm in the comments below, I'm going to have a link to a Google Doc where I'll have all the screenshots of the different pixels on there. And that way you can see each one for each 8 Robot Master boss room where you want to be standing. And that's really it, guys. That's sort of a quick and dirty brush over all the different little mechanics with this game. It's so important to know your slides, your neutral slides, your moving slides, jumping out of a slide, making sure that you don't jump out of a slide underwater. You need to cancel your slide. Learning how to do Raiden slides. Balloon jumps, being aware of how high you're putting your balloon if you're close to a ceiling, because you don't want to kill yourself. Learning the zips, learning to wall jump off balloons and stuff. Make sure you're moving a little bit towards balloons. Flash stopper, getting good at your movement with slides will allow you to make flash stopper last longer, because the better you chain your slides together, the longer flash stopper will last. Pharaoh shot, making sure you're holding B with that full charge, hitting the enemy above with the charge above your head, and then once iframes wear off, releasing B with a free full charge, therefore getting 2 charges for the price of 1. We talked about some of the other weapons. I'll get in a little more in-depth on some of them in the actual stages that they're used. Rush, Coil, Jet, and Marine. Just some of the things about them, how they work, why Rush is a little bit slower and whatnot, falling from the sky in this game as opposed to some of the other ones. Differences between charges and lemon shots, why we don't mash bosses, why we don't use Flash Stopper on Pharaoh Man, it's really slow, different things like that. And then, yeah, kill location, as we just showed you here, and the magic pixel. So hopefully this has been really helpful. I'm really excited to get into this tutorial. The very first one we're going to dip into is Bright Man, and from there we'll just try to follow roughly the easier route, which is Bright first, then Pharaoh, Ring, Dust, etc., etc. So hopefully this has been a really helpful tutorial, and yeah, we'll see you guys later in the rest of this tutorial. Take care.